From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. James, how are you today? It's good to be back, and I'm very excited about our conversation.
Doing well, Steve. Definitely, excited for this topic. We'll see how it goes because something I could probably talk about a lot.
Absolutely. So, if you haven't caught some of our previous episodes, James has been a lot quieter because he's given a lot more space to our guests, and we've had some really good guests. So, make sure you tune in to recent episodes. We had Jeff Perkins from QSYS, we had Mike Krejci from CTI, we had Leon Prather from Avixa. All great guests, all had wonderful things to say, and we always want to create space for them to talk, and many of them will be back to share even more of their insight. But for today, we're going to tap into some of James' insight, and we're going to talk about some things that we think are pretty relatable. So, from our perspective in the AV world, and as people who are programmers or have a programming background or just live in this programming world, and we are very a lot more comfortable with technology than most. So the question that I want to broach is, as far as technical literacy, do we take for granted that people understand what we do or understand the things that we talk about? And from my background, I'm used to dealing with some generations that didn't really have the same access to tech, and because things have changed quite a bit in my lifetime, where we went from really the beginning of PCs to now everybody's carrying around a computer in their pocket, and even my daughter who's 2 can really figure out how to work an iPhone. So, James, you're a lot closer to this than I am because you're dealing with users. You also have student workers. So, give me a little bit of your perspective on where things stand in terms of the gap of technical literacy between the experts and those who are using it.
I feel I feel as a society, we're becoming comfortable with technology in our lives, but we are understanding it less. And bear with me because I've seen this over my course of my career. Um, we used to you had one family computer. If there was a problem, the computer probably cost a decent amount of money, your family saved for it. There's a problem, you tried to figure it out. Now technology has almost become throwaway. Oh, this device doesn't work. Throw it away, I'm getting a new one. I've even heard kids say that out in public where one was like, "Oh man, my phone's really not working right." And the other one's like, "Just get a new one." Instead of, "Hey, let's figure out what's going on with your phone," it's just like, get rid of it, go get a new one. Um, and I really feel that even though the generations are now more comfortable with technology in their lives, they understand it far less than people even, generation above me, where I'll admit they probably know more of the ins and outs than I do. I would be very shocked if the majority of our listeners knew what IRQs were,
Hmm.
let alone what they were for. But us programmers, computer programmers, the AV, have made it so we don't need to worry about those anymore.
Interesting. I'm going to go back to days of modems and BBSs, and being really not connected, and as you said, we having a computer at home was an investment, and it was a prize, and you really you almost you had to coddle it a bit, and say that this was something that we want to make sure that is going to last over time, and we're going to take care of it. And I guess you took turns using it and stuff like that, and some people became really invested in it, and they learned more than others. And like you said, there are some that would use it, and then when it would stop working, they would say it was broken rather than trying to figure out why is it slow? Has it slowed down? Is it, does it have something that we could, is it a hardware problem, a software problem? Is it just, the nature of the situation? But I had a feeling you were going to go in the direction that you went in because we take for granted what it takes to make things work these days. And I think that that's kind of a function of somebody saying this, just get a new one, because it's, there really is in we've maybe lost that troubleshooting, and is that a function of we've lost it because we don't still have the tools that we used to have to do it, or we lost it because we can't appreciate what it took to make it work, and therefore we just expect it works or it doesn't. It's almost like binary.
Yeah, I don't know. I have gone back and forth on this because I want to say the tools are there, but they're not always l- prevalent. It's you have to kind of do some searching for it because, and like I said, I admit we have advanced our technologies. With the aid of programmers, have made a lot of things that we had to do manually on computers automatic now. Great, but because of that, we have lost skills that the tools are still there. We can still manually go in there, but we don't need to. So that tool is no longer about. For example, like I'll admit, I know nothing about cars. There, someone in my age who might be a car fanatic knows a lot about cars. The tools are still there, but to me, it's not. I don't have my time, my research is not spent into figuring out how a car works, or hey, my car is broken, let me go figure it out. I spend my time elsewhere. I go to an expert, a mechanic, for that. And same thing, we know our folks here are they'll be like, oh, the computer's not working. I'm not the expert here. I'm going to go to an IT person. But I've also even seen in the IT realm where the newer generation, because they didn't have to work so hard to figure out what was going on, because they could hit a button to reimage the computer. It used to take 2, 3, 4 days to reimage a computer. Now it takes an hour, if that. So instead of spending 3, 4, 5 days reimaging the computer, you say, hey, can I figure out what's going on? Can I fix this within a day and get it back to the user? Us IT people, and yes, AV is IT, we'll just put it there. We are very mindful of impact to our users and uptime. So as quickly as we can get the user up and running again is what we aim for. So hitting a button to reimage the computer to put it back at a normal state, that takes about an hour, or spending a half a day researching to figure out what this virus did, or what's going on is, the value is just hitting the button. But then the side effect is we lose the skill.
Yeah, I like where you're going with that, and I think that was a good analogy. And if you also think about it too, I think mechanics these days, at least I don't have a lot of experience, and this is not my area of focus. I also go to an expert to do anything with my car, but they were reliant on reading the output of a computer for the diagnosis of for modern cars of what the issue is, and many of them can't go in and troubleshoot on their own, or they don't, or they've been trained now that we're told what the problem is. We don't figure out what the problem is, because,
Exactly.
you know,
The sorry to cut you off there,
no,
Steve,
no,
but
go
that
ahead, please.
that actually reminded me of a real world situation that had nothing to do with cars, had nothing to do with uh, a problem with a computer. I don't know if I've said this on this podcast or not, but I know I've told this story. I was in grade school, maybe high school, and my mom and I were out, and we stopped at Burger King for lunch while we were out. And we walked in, they weren't busy. There's a young person at the counter, and my mom ordered a meal. Forget what the meal was, but she ordered the combo. The cashier person rung her up, said, "Oh, that's going to be $3." I'm using all the numbers here. I don't remember exactly. And my mom looked up at the sign that's above, the digital sign where it says the combo is $6. So my mom was like, "Did you ring me up for the combo?" Cashier, "Yes, I did." My mom was like, "Okay, but you're telling me it's 3. The sign up there is saying 6." She's like, "But the computer's telling me it's 3." "Okay. Are you sure you rung up for the combo?" "Yes, it's the combo." "Are you sure that's the right price?" "Yes, that's the right price." "Cool." My mom paid. Mom, go over. It wasn't the combo. Just rung her up for the sandwich. But the computer told them it was the right one. They didn't use their critical thinking. Hey, there is a problem here. The sign is saying this device is saying this. They don't match. Let me go find out who's correct. Maybe you didn't know the answer. So you have to go find me, a manager. Okay. You talk to your manager, go, okay, which one's right, the computer or the sign? What one thing I'm trying to very hard to get with my team and make clear, and this is a thing as a leader, is developing that source of truth. Where is the one point of this is the truth? If you're coming across a conflict of how to do something, one thing saying one thing, another thing saying, which one is the source of truth? So I'm making sure when I'm creating documents or we're creating procedures, it's like, here is the source of truth. And I even got as far as go, this document is the source of truth. Now, if I told you something different, let's talk about it. Maybe this document needs to be updated, or maybe I was misspoken. But right now, the document is the source of truth. I don't think we, as a society, are taking the time to pause and critically think what is being told to us. We see that with, the GPS. When GPS came out, how many people turned on train tracks because the GPS told them to? But like, cool, but don't you have eyes? Don't you see? Don't you make a choice? And that's, I think, where a lot of the fear of AI taking over is going to be, because so many people are so, well, this is telling me to do this, instead of being like, hey, is this accurate? We all talk about AI hallucinating. It's going to come up with false information. So we as a society, I think, have lost that troubleshooting and that critical thinking skill. It's, oh, this says this, I don't know what to do next. Instead of like, let me go figure it out.
I love all the things that you just said, and I think I was thinking about AI as well as you were going through that story, because I think that that's a great real world now example of how you need to be able to verify what information you're getting, and know how to use the information. The information just can't be verbatim. I think that that's perfect, and I think critical thinking is probably one of the most important skills that I look for on members of my team. And it's not just limited to the technical, the programmers, the people that are the most intensely technical. It's really critical thinking comes in all parts of business. It's comes in decision making. You have to be able to take in information and process a situation, and you can't just go by a checklist. You can't just go by a flow chart or a decision tree. You have to be able to apply your knowledge, and that's honestly what makes somebody valuable. And I think that that's where you see people rise up, where those that are being able to, it's probably the definition of thinking outside the box, if you will, because you have to know when to challenge something. You have to know when to process something and say, this is not good information. This is something that's um, incorrect or inaccurate or outside of the range. I learned a lot of this, quite honestly, in my schooling, going to school for engineering, because it's really what they taught you. When you would take a test or you would be working on a project or a problem, it was you part of the responsibility to be able to say the data, the results I'm getting don't make sense. And I think that that's a good example of that. Um, so let's bring that back, I guess, a little bit to our AV world and our audience of programmers and people that are interested in more programming. How do we apply this awareness to day to day to make ourselves more effective?
That is the $1 million question. If anyone has a true answer to that, let me know. I would love to hear it. But I want to, I think what it comes to is work, working hard, putting the work in, not looking for the easy answer. And I know it kind of sounds a little generic and all that stuff, not answering direct the question. But you think about it is like we talked about earlier, is a lot of people are just looking at what the system is telling them and not thinking, wait, this doesn't match up. What could be wrong? Like prime example of let's do an AV. If we are programming our system and we hit the on button and the touch panel is telling us the system's on, but none of the equipment comes on, there's a problem. I hope we all understand that, but many people, I feel, will be sitting there looking at the touch panel and being like, well, it says the system's on, but nothing's turning on. But it says the system's on. Like they get into that loop. So they don't want to be like, cool, there's a problem here. Let's figure out where it is. And I want to say that becomes the hard work. Because I say people are like water. Path of least resistance they're going to take. And I actually posted this on my LinkedIn about 3 weeks ago. So I know it's an old quote, but I heard it on a Netflix document of Drive to Survive. I think it's a documentary on F1 racers. And Max Verstappen, it was quoted on there. It goes F1, and everyone knows F1 it has very talented drivers. He goes F1 does not have the best talent. They have the best talent who work the hardest. And I think that's what we are missing is that work the hardest. I've seen there are tons of people who are very bright in computers or whatever they're doing, AV, but they're not putting the work in. And they get surpassed by somebody who, who will put the work in. As we always tell, like I tell the players I coach, is hard work will outperform talent when talent doesn't put the work in.
That is so awesome. That's a great tip. And if we want to really bring that into the AV world and to programmers, I think the what you're saying is that we need to go a step further. We need to not just uh, do something that works. We need to do something that works better. We need to like so maybe an example that to talk about the system on that you discussed is making sure that feedback is true feedback. And if it says system on, it truly is on. I could think of other situations where, and this isn't something that I have a ton of personal experience with because my days of programming have uh, been way in my rear view mirror, but I'm dealing and working with it, and still talking about it on a daily basis, and working with my team, is that when we have situations where we're expecting some feedback, or where um, where a product is online, we have to be able to create those situations where it falls offline, and you basically break your loop, if you will. You have to have those fallout exceptions, maybe is the best way of putting it, so that program it doesn't lock up because it's continuing to look for this product, and it's still not there. If it's not there after three times, it has to say it's no longer online, so that it doesn't cause the rest of your system to hang up. And to me, that's another good example of critical thinking, where you shouldn't assume that something, because it worked today, is going to work 5 minutes from now or work tomorrow. And I have, situations. We have a um, very extensive test lab for our team, and there are times where some circuit falls off of line. Maybe it's something that happens because of Ethernet connectivity. Maybe it's power. Maybe it's a device, and we have to troubleshoot it because we have a ton of equipment that isn't necessarily going to be played nicely together, if you will. So that's a good example, I think, of critical thinking and not making assumptions.
Yeah, and I was chuckling. If anyone were watching the video, probably saw me chuckling when you were talking about that, Steve, because you reminded me of a episode of The Big Bang Theory. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Of course.
All right. And the one where Sheldon is doing a for loop for something. He's working out a problem on his whiteboard and gets into a infinite loop. And all the other characters is like, oh no, he's stuck in a loop. He's just going around and around and around. And they had to go and put a little break in there to get him out of it. I don't know how many times we programmers have probably done that. We've done a for loop, like, oh, this is gonna fail, and then oh wait, we're stuck in this. Oh, you don't know how to get out, and we had to break it.
And as we wrap up, I think another good example of that, if you want to, parallel it to trying to fix a problem, is sometimes you have to walk away from it to figure it out. And that's another good, you may be too close to it, and you may be narrowing your thoughts too small to be seeing where the problem is, or where the solution is, that's outside of your purview.
100%. And I, again, real world scenario situation, I was, I had that. I was stuck on a program. I couldn't figure out for the life of me how to get it to work. So I got up from my desk and I was standing in the hallway, and my coworker, who very smart in what he could do, but didn't know programming. I was a programmer. I handled that. He was very wise in what he did. And he can see I was a little, I guess, confused, a little stressed and all that stuff. So yes, he's like, oh, is something wrong? I'm like, no, I'm just trying to figure out how to do this program. He's like, well, tell me, and maybe I can figure it out. I knew right away, no, he's not going to know what I'm talking about. But I did mention to him, and I could see his eyes glaze over. I'm like, don't worry about it. I just need to go for a walk. I will figure it out. Did that, went for a walk, came back, figured it out, and got to go.
And sometimes just talking to somebody about it might get you to figure it out, because you're now explaining it to that's a great way of wrapping this up, is you're explaining something that is very technical to somebody who may not understand. So you had to use a different way of presenting it to him, and it may have caused you to think about it differently.
I think not to drag this on and more. My last point would be is I actually heard this. I've heard it before, but I heard it clearly at a AI conference I went to. It was a professor from Harvard, and he was programmer. He did programming classes, and he talked about the duck. Talk to the duck. He always tells his students, talk to the duck. And what he was talking about was he would actually have his students get a rubber duck, and put on their desk. And when they're stuck about it, talk to the rubber duck. 'Cause when you talk it out verbally, you start hearing like, oh, okay, here he is. So then he went on because it was an AI conference and said they have taken that concept of talk to the rubber duck and they built a AI chatbot where at first it was called the duck. You will put your concerns in, and all it did was quack at you. Random one quack up to three random. Then they started adding where it would start giving you some suggestions and all that stuff. But it was that whole concept talk to something to hear your own problem.
So I'll follow that up with crediting QSIS and Tammy Fuquay, who posted something about that in the developer community some time ago, and I didn't realize where the reference came from. So that's awesome. And they had she had a big thing about every programmer should have a duck on their desk. So that's a great way for us to put a bow on this and also mention several people who have contributed to our show in the past. And I hope that you out there appreciated this conversation. It was a little bit of um, a thought process as to how we would explain this topic of translating technical literacy, but I think we covered a lot of different points. So thank you, James, for making that happen. How could people get in touch with you? How can people learn more about what you're doing? And if you wanted to share any final words.
If you want to find me, Google me, you'll find me. I'm out there. AV underscore James King on the socials of X, LinkedIn. That's the programming community on LinkedIn. Like I said, Google me, you'll find me.
Fantastic. And for me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media. My company, Control Concepts, is a supporter of this podcast, and we build some of the components, modules, drivers, and plugins that help programmers be more successful, whether you're interfacing with products or you're trying to add functionality to your system. You could find that at controlconcepts.net. One final thought that I had is that something that we can think about as programmers and technical people is there's opportunities there in filling that gap that we discussed and being able to um, maybe help translate technical things or be the one that people go to when they're ready to abandon their product, device, or solution and and fix it for them. So there, I look at things in that regard from a business perspective. So think about that, but share what your thoughts are about this podcast, this episode, and any ideas that you have for future content, either to James or me directly, or even better in the LinkedIn community for Ask the Programmer. We're going to get more active there, and I'm going to engage some of our past guests to get them adding some more ideas and highlighting some of the things that they've shared with us. So check that out. If you are listening to this podcast, you could also watch it on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, you could listen to it in your favorite podcast player. We'd like to have you in either place, but when you are there, please leave a rating, review, or comment. We'd love to hear from you, and we would like to be able to mention you on a future episode. So until next time, this has been Ask the Programmer.